What's up, guys? It's Jeremy Blanton, and today we're here to talk about a new topic. Today I want to discuss with you 5 things you must know when you're moving to Myrtle Beach. These are things that, well, you're not going to hear in other places, but it's stuff that you really want to know. It's going to save you thousands of dollars, a ton of headaches, and also make sure that when you buy that house, you're able to close on time. So I'm going to share with you 5 things that I have come across over the 20 years of selling real estate here that has really helped my clients. Now, if you're thinking about buying a house, make sure you watch this whole video because it's going to have a lot of important information in it for you. And if you need help doing it, my information's down below. Shoot me an email, shoot me a text, call, whatever. I'm here to help you however I can. But with that, let's get into this list. And the first thing on the list that I wanted to talk about is taxes. Your property taxes. When you buy a house here in Myrtle Beach, you're originally going to be set up instantly as a second home or an investment type property. What that means is that Horry County is doing that because they want to make more money. Your taxes are going to be then at about 3 times the amount of what a house would be if it is your primary residence. Let's talk a minute about my personal house. My primary residence home is now taxed at the reduced rate, which means that my taxes are right around $950 a year for our home. If we didn't have it registered as our primary residence, we would be paying probably close to $2,700 to $3,000 a year in taxes. That is a huge savings. So what do you need to do to get your home registered? Well, there's a real easy forms now that you can go online to the Horry County website and you can register for the things right online. Now, there's some stuff that you have to do in order to qualify. One of those is get your driver's license switched over, get your voter registration, your car's registered to that address, and then you also have to send in a copy of your most recent tax form. On the website, it shows you what things you can redact. They're not looking at it to see if you paid your taxes on time or any of those things. They just want to make sure that they have it to make sure everything is registered to that house. But you're going to take all this information, load it up online, or you can still do the old school way, carry it down to the courthouse and do it and go back and forth across the street from the tax assessors and the DMV and back and forth and all that nonsense if you want. But you're going to take all this information and put it in. Now, it takes a little bit of time for everything to get processed through. So if you have a home that you've purchased probably in the summer months or even as you start to get into the fall, you want to make sure that you go and do that immediately. Because once it starts to get to around October, November, they're going to start to process everything and get all the bills ready to go out. So take that time, get it all done, give yourself plenty of time because it's going to save you a ton of money. So once you have all that in place, you're going to save a bunch. Now, the other thing that's going to happen, and this usually only happens the first year that you own the house, you're probably going to get some sort of notice from Horry County as well. That is something they send out for investment properties. And it's basically a furniture tax. You may get it and just ignore it and throw it away. Don't do that, because if you don't take the time to fill it out and say, this is my primary residence, I own it, don't send me this extra tax bill, and share that you're using it as a primary residence, they're going to just continue to rack up. Then when you go to sell the home, you find something that's 5-10 years old of this old tax bill, and you can't just go in and dispute it and make it disappear. You're going to end up having to pay a lot of money. So make sure you pay attention to that. Usually on the back of the form, it has a box you check saying, no, this is my primary residence, nothing that's being used for rental or for investment or a second home, and then you don't have to pay that bill. So that's the biggest thing that I want to say first and foremost in regards to taxes. Now next, let's talk a separate type of taxes, and the second one is your vehicle taxes. Yes, here in South Carolina, we pay taxes on our vehicles each and every year. Now, we don't have like other states where they do the annual inspection of your vehicle. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and every year our cars had to get an inspection done, and if something came up, you had to get it taken care of. My wife, she came from the Atlanta, Georgia area, and there in Atlanta, what they would do is they have emissions tests and all that. Here in South Carolina and in Horry County right now, none of that stuff is in place. Hence why you see all these vehicles going down the road with, held together by duct tape and stickers. A lot of that happens because you can basically literally drive the car till the wheels fall off. So you don't have those things in place to help generate some income. So instead, where does the money come for the education tax? Well, it comes from two different things. One, the vehicle that you own, you're paying a tax on it every year. So, like for example, myself, I own a 2015 Ford Explorer right now. My taxes on that car this last year were right around $320 for it. It's a little bit higher because mine's owned through my business, which is a whole nother separate video I could do 20 minutes on probably. But because it's in a business name, I pay a little bit more. But if it was my personal name, it probably would be around $250 a year right now. Not a lot of money. But if you take my property taxes plus my vehicle taxes for our cars, put those together, it's still going to be more affordable than if you were to just live in another state like New Jersey, where it's $8,000 to $10,000 a year property taxes, or New York, where you're paying $15,000 or $18,000. So in the long run, you're saving usually a bunch of money. The other place where they get that money for the education tax comes from the South Carolina lottery. Whenever somebody buys a lottery ticket, they're putting money into the South Carolina education. This recently came about. This was not something that was around 25 years ago. I want to say probably in the last 20 years, it has really come into existence. And what it does is it helps to supplement all of the education through our area. So that's the second thing I want to talk about today, the taxes on your vehicles and how education is funded in our area. So the third thing on our list then that I want to talk about that is super important when you're buying a house and moving to Myrtle Beach is that the insurance for your home. You need to, the minute that you have it under a pending contract, you should start the process of searching for homeowners insurance. Now, why is it? Not because it's hard to get it or it takes a long time or that, but if it is during the season that we're in right now, known as hurricane season, if you have a named storm that's out in the Atlantic, whether it's a tropical storm, a tropical depression, or a hurricane, any of those that are out there, a lot of your insurance companies are going to stop writing policies for that time. And so what happens, we go get your house under contract, you wait, we're 2 weeks out from closing, and you're going to go then apply. And there's a named storm that's out in the Atlantic with a possibility of coming to our area, you can't get insurance. You can't get the binder, can't get the name. And so when we go to close, the lender's not going to release funds because you don't have insurance in place. So take the time, go get it set up. Let me share a story with what happened to my father and I when we bought our house here. We bought a great house up in Briarcliff Acres. We were a mile away from the beach. And at the time, the agent that we used, they weren't very good. They didn't tell us much of anything about what we needed to do, didn't give us anything to prepare, nothing. So here we are, we're a week out from closing. We have everything in place to make the purchase, except the lender says, well, who are we using for insurance? And my father just kind of went, huh? The what? Oh, I forgot about that. Well, let me just make a call and I'll get it and I'll call my State Farm person. So we called our State Farm representative and they said, we can't write right now. And they went, what do you mean you can't write? We have policies with you here. We have this, we have that. We're an existing customer. Just give us, nope, we can't do it. We had to go outside to an insurance broker. We had to use a company called Lloyd's of London. Not sure if you've ever heard of them, but they're the people that insure real crazy and wild things. Things like Jennifer Lopez's butt, Billy Joel's fingers, all kinds of crazy things like that. And we had to get our property insurance through them. It was $7,700 for years of insurance coverage because there was a storm that was out there in the Atlantic. Why did we have to do that? If not, we were going to be homeless. We were going to have no place to live, and this was a last resort. And it's a good thing that we got it because that storm that came through was Hurricane Bertha, and it caused all kinds of damage on our street. Luckily, our home was okay, but if one of those trees that fell over landed on the home and we didn't have insurance in place, we would have been in big, big trouble. So when you're thinking about buying a house and you have that contract in place, make sure you take a moment, reach out instantly to the insurance agent and start to work on that process. What I've actually started to do right now is I have my transaction coordinators on the first week of basically writing the contract. They're sending you the contact information for our local insurance broker here that my clients love. Her name's Terry. Shout out to Terry. Hey, how you doing? She's awesome. And so we're sending you that information. When you get it, take the time, get it filled out, get the binder in place, and then you're good to go. All right, number 4. This is something that I get asked about all the time, and that is be aware and conscious of the flood zones that we have here in our area. I get people who call me constantly saying, hey, I want to buy a house. And when I mention to them, well, maybe we should look at areas like Conway, they go, oh no, I don't want to buy in Conway because that area floods. Yes, back in the day during Hurricane Matthew, Hurricane Florence, and the 1,000-year floods, there was flooding and it happened throughout the Conway area. But that isn't the only section of Myrtle Beach that had flooding take place. There was parts down in Sockasty on the southern end of Myrtle Beach. There was stuff up in Longs and Loris and Little River that also had flooding issues. So it's not just one small spot. The other thing to take into consideration is this. When that flooding happens, it's not the entire area of Conway. Conway is a huge area. It covers a ton of miles of space, and it wasn't the whole city was underwater. It was one small segment in one small area that had the flooding issues. So you want to make sure that you're working with a real estate agent that is on top of things, that knows what's happening with flooding, that they're going through and they know the areas. One of the things that I do on every single home that my clients are thinking about is I go through and look at the residential property disclosure. This is a form that is filled out on every single property that is sold that is not new construction. And in there, after Hurricane Florence, there were some additional questions that were added to the disclosure. One of those questions now talks about, has there ever been any water damage in the home? Another one asks, is this home in a flood zone? And then the third question, which is the newest one, was, has this home ever had any FEMA claims against it? If any of those boxes are checked yes, we're going to do a lot more investigations before we go and start to put an offer in on that property. That way we know. Now, yes, a homeowner could be untruthful and check the wrong box on purpose to be deceitful. And if that happens, we wouldn't know. But when we get to the insurance part, they're going to immediately say, hey, this home is now in a flood zone. Your insurance is going to be this amount more because of it being in that flood zone. And we're going to know something is up. So you want to make sure you're working with somebody who's paying attention to that stuff and is on top of it. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy helping my clients do, is make sure what we're buying, it's safe, it's going to stay dry, and we're not going to have water issues down the road. All right, and I'm on to the last one, but stick around after because I have a bonus one that I'm going to share with you in a minute. But let's talk about number 5, and that is table funding. Now, what the heck is that? You may be wondering, Jeremy, I've never heard this term before in my life. So let's take a minute and break this down. So what is table funding? It's a simple process. Back in the day, the way the process used to be when you were purchasing a home is you would go to your attorney, the seller would go to their attorney, we sign all our documents. They then have a courier take all of those documents and they would meet up at the courthouse. They would exchange things there. The buyer's courier would go up to the window with all the documents, hand it in at the Register of Deeds. They'd look at it all, scan it all, make sure everything is good. It's now recorded and then we're official. Once that recording takes place and they got notification back, then you were allowed to get your keys. So if you sign the documents, say 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you miss the courier for the day and you're not closing on that day and not getting keys. If that's a Friday afternoon of a holiday weekend like we're in right now, that means you're not getting keys on Friday, you're not getting keys on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, which is a holiday, you're not getting it either. So you have to then find a place to live for 3-4 extra days. So what has happened now is table funding has come into place. What that means is the seller's attorneys are usually trying to get documents signed a day or 2 in advance. They can then FedEx those documents over to the buyer's attorney. The buyer's attorney, when they have all the documents back from the buyer and all the documents from the seller, they can then say, we have it all here, scan the stuff directly into Horry County's courthouse, and they can then say, we are basically table funded. The money's there, everything's signed, we're good. Then the courthouse takes however long they want. Maybe it's later that day, maybe it's the next day, for everything to get processed through, and then we are officially done and finished with the deal. But to help our clients, like my cash buyer tomorrow who's buying a home, they came from Arizona. They drove across the country with their puppy. They need to have table funding in place so that tomorrow, after everything's closed, they have ability to move into their home and not have to find another place to rent for the night with the puppy. So in that situation, table funding has come in extremely helpful. What should happen tomorrow is the seller's documents are already at the attorney's office. We're going there at 9:30 in the morning to sign. They're a cash purchase, so they've already wired the money to the attorney. So we have seller's docs, we have money, we're gonna get the buyer's docs, all three parts. We'll be able to say at that point, you're good to go. Hand them the key and they can go back to their condo and start moving into the property. So table funding is something that is great that has come into effect in our area. And this is one of the few things that the pandemic has definitely brought to light that has been a benefit. Before that, it would be sometimes 2-3 days that we'd be frustrated dealing with it. With table funding now, it's usually within a few hours. All right, and as I promised, here now is that bonus one that I wanted to give you. And that is this. This is my used home rule of thumb when buying a house. When you're thinking about purchasing a house here in the Horry County area, you're buying stuff sometimes that's used. That means it's not gonna be new, it's not gonna be perfect, it's not gonna be everything just the way you want. And even sometimes when you buy those new homes, it's not gonna be the way you want. Why? Builders right now, they're not making changes, they're not making adjustments. You have to take it the way they want. So here is my rule of thumb that I use on this. If the house fits the 80-10-10 rule, it's the house for you. That means if the house has 80% of the things you want, that means the amenities are amazing and that's what you've been looking for. It has the lot location that you wanted with the 2-car garage and the 4 bedrooms that you need and the square footage, then that might fit the 80 part. Then you have the 10% that, you know what, I can live with this. It doesn't have, granite countertops, it only has Formica. It doesn't have natural gas, it only has an electric stove. I can live with those things, not a big deal. And then the other 10% is the 10% you don't mind changing. I have people right now that are buying a home here from California, and I shared with them the 80-10-10 rule, and that's what they used to make the purchase. The home fit 80% of what they needed. It had the number of bedrooms, the square footage they wanted. It had the amenities they wanted with the pool, the lazy river, the lake that you could go kayak on, basketball courts, all of that stuff. And it had so many things in the house that they wanted. It had 10% they can live with. It didn't have natural gas. And then 10% they don't mind changing. They're going to go in, they're going to paint the house when they get in there and probably replace the carpet. That's what I mean when I say 80-10-10. There's a couple things they can do. They don't have a problem doing it, but as a whole, 80% has everything they want. And so if you guys can keep that equation in the back of your head when you start the search, you're going to be in great shape. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. As always, if you did, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, get that bell on, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.